welcome back to the channel. Man, that was a good movie. Fair warning, this review is going to be very long and very rambly. I'm recording this on Friday morning. I've only seen the film once, so I may misremember some things, or I'm not going to remember some things, or and I haven't quite finished comprehending where I am right now on this movie. Quick overall opinions is that Force Awakens left me. I loved Force Awakens for what it's worth. You guys probably already know this if you've been subscribed to the channel for a while. But The Force Awakens left me a little jittery. I walked out of the theater giddy and excited and a little weak in the knees and a little, shaky, and oh, that was so good. This movie, I felt like I just got hit by a force wave like Darth Malgus got hit in one of the Old Republic trailers. I felt like I got force pushed into a mountain and then the mountain fell on top of me and I'm running on 4 hours of sleep and I'm wide awake, but I'm dead tired at the same time. It's such a good movie. There are a lot of issues with this movie. There's a ton of issues with this movie. And I guess we'll start on those. The only two big ones that I can really think of right now, keep in mind that I'm biased because while I really enjoyed the movie as a whole, there's a little bit too much comedy in the first hour or so. And I think that causes my second issue, which is that the first hour feels a little bit rambly and directionless and kind of all over the place. I was worried that we weren't going to get what I at least like to call emotional momentum, where the themes and everything are coming together and you're starting to feel this overwhelming sense of hope or this overwhelming sense of tension or this overwhelming whatever. And Rogue One didn't give me that emotional momentum. Force Awakens did give me that emotional momentum. And the first hour of this movie made me worried I wasn't going to get that emotional momentum. And it just... Star Wars is meant to be fun. And this movie was fun. But it also was inspiring, and it just made me... It made me love being a Rebel fanboy. It called back to all of the great themes and traits of other Star Wars movies that I love. It has the self-sacrifice. It has the heroism in the face of adversity. It has the themes of hope. It has the themes of betrayal. It has the themes of the mythos of Star Wars is there, but I don't know what. Something got thrown out the window. I'm going to reference somebody that I read on Twitter this morning who pointed out that The Last Jedi is kind of like Star Trek Episode 3, The Search for Spock, where the Enterprise gets blown up. And for the Star Trek fandom, that would be like blowing up the Millennium Falcon. You don't do it. It completely changes the game. And The Last Jedi, while it didn't blow up the Millennium Falcon, and I don't know what it blew up or what it threw out, but it threw away something. It did something completely different and went in a completely different direction that I wasn't expecting. And that is awesome to me. And while I'm talking about expectations, I don't want to come off high and mighty here. So I do apologize if I do come off that way. Just understand that I'm not trying to put down anybody for their opinions or their thoughts. because it's a movie. It's made of art, which means that it can only be viewed subjectively, period. I think that the Star Wars fandom in particular has a big issue with its own expectations. A lot of the negative reactions, because I haven't read or watched any actual reviews for this film before I filmed this, but the negative reactions that I've seen are primarily revolving around it was a disappointment. It didn't fulfill certain expectations that fans had. And you have to let those expectations go, in my opinion. There are tons of things that I wanted from The Last Jedi that I didn't get. I'm not going to... It's so important to understand that it's not my movie franchise. It's not my story. It's Rian Johnson's story. It's J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy and their story. It's the story group's story. It's the special effects artist story. It's the actor's story. They are telling us a story, and they shouldn't be beholden to the fan base in order to tell their story. The Force Awakens was what they thought we wanted, in my opinion. The Force Awakens was a fan film made so that then the fan base would be happy. They tried to cover as many bases as they could. They tried to, still have some kind of prequel-y type themes in order, so then the prequel people were kind of happy, but maybe not really. And then they also kind of crapped on the prequels, so that then the prequel haters might be a little bit, whatever. They wanted to make a film that they thought we would like with The Force Awakens. And this is not the same thing. This is the film that Rian Johnson wanted to tell. This is the film that Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams and the story group signed off on, and they wanted him to give us. They weren't really concerned with what the fan base wanted. They wanted to make a good quality movie, and in my opinion, they did succeed. Yes, there's some tonal issues in the first hour or so. It could be a little bit long for some people in its 2.5 hour running time, and it did not feel like 2.5 hours. It felt like a 4-hour movie last night. But after Luke accepts training Rey, after he makes that choice to decide to train Rey, and before he stops wanting to train Rey, and then after Canto Bight is about when the film started to come together for me, and I started to build that emotional momentum. And then you had this Battlestar Star Warsia going on with the Resistance fleet fleeing the First Order. And then you got Admiral Holdo being a complete and utter awesome character. I was more moved by her sacrifice than I was moved by any of the Rogue One team members' sacrifice. That's just my perspective as a fan, which is crazy to say because we got a whole movie with the Rogue One team. We only got like 5-10 minutes max of Admiral Holdo. That also could be because I read Leia, Princess of Alderaan, where she's a pretty major supporting character. You got the Admiral Holdo sacrifice. You've got the absolutely incredible sequence of Crate. It was just, man, I don't know what to say. I'm still all speechless and stumbly, and I've had sleep and like 12 hours to get my thoughts together, and I still have no idea what I'm trying to say. other than that I love this movie. I adore this movie. The best parts, hands down for me, is the Admiral Holdo sacrifice, the death of Luke, the moment when Rey pulls and lifts all the stones, and Broom Boy, the kid with the broom at the very end, and he has the little ring with the rebel symbol. And the two parts that I mentioned that I cried about, that I mentioned in the last video, the video that I released last night, the spoiler-free reaction video. The 2 points that I cried at were Luke's death, and when Rey was lifting up lifting the rocks out of the way of the Resistance. And I would have cried at Broom Boy, but I couldn't. I was too emotionally spent. I did way too many of, moments in between. Like, I knew Finn was gonna die. As a fan, when Finn was charging that little miniaturized Death Star laser thing, I knew Finn was going to die. I knew that was going to happen. And it didn't. And Rian Johnson took me for the wildest frickin' ride I have ever been on. I cannot stress that I have never had a piece of fiction do this to me ever before. I cannot stress that enough. I've never been pulled in so many directions and have it work. Rogue One pulled me in a lot of directions, but it just left me kind of confused and weird. Whereas Last Jedi just left me a pile of goo in my theater seat. It was just... It has so many new themes and so many new ideas, and it throws out some pretty ridiculously crazy stuff. Like the way that they open the movie, where it's just they do make Hux into a punk, but for me that's okay because Hux was already a punk as it is for me. He was already kind of a wannabe. He was cosplaying as a Grand Admiral. He wasn't actually a, Grand General or Grand Admiral or whatever. He was pretending. And so I was totally fine when Hux, got immediately turned into a joke within like the first 10 minutes of the film. It was just, it was so good. I warned you guys that this video was going to be crazy rambly, but I'm still speechless. The fact that 12 hours after, I've never been speechless 12 hours or whatever, 11 hours after I left a Star Wars movie. I've never had that happen to me before. I'm always ready to talk about it and theorize and think and da-da-da. And I have this weird moment of freedom where I'm not worried about anything. I'm just, okay, that was amazing, and I can't wait for episode 9. Like, that's all my thoughts on The Last Jedi. That was amazing. I don't know why it's amazing. I kind of don't want to know why it's so amazing. It just is for me. Again, I do think that it's because of expectations that I enjoyed it as much as I did. I used to be a big theorist. I used to be a big, well, but what if this character is that character's kid? Or what if this character is actually this character from way this way? And I used to be like that, and I still kind of am, but Rogue One was kind of my sacrificial lamb in this. Rogue One, I walked in with so many huge expectations, and they were all disappointed, and so I didn't like the movie. I've admitted before that a lot of my Rogue One complaints aren't as it as a film. It wasn't what I wanted complaints. It's lots of, like the fact that there was destiny and stuff in it. I understand that those are, sorry, whiny fanboy complaints. That's because they didn't tell the story you had in your head. And Star Wars isn't that anymore. And I'm sorry that it isn't going to be a headcanon universe anymore. I know it started that way with the original trilogy and all the little, offshoots and Splinters of the Mind's Eye and Tales of Jabba's Palace and Tales from the Cantina, Mos Eisley Cantina and stuff. Those days are kind of over. You're going to have to go elsewhere to have things not explained for you. If you want to keep your own headcanon, keep the own things that work in your own mind, I'm not saying get out of the Star Wars fandom at all. Please don't misinterpret me. But I'm saying that you're going to need to go to Old Republic era. You're going to need to go to prequel, just pre-prequel era. You're going to need to go a few hundred years into the future after the sequel trilogy era. Or you're just going to have to tell your own stories and then see these Star Wars movies, these new Star Wars movies, these new Disney story group, Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson led movies and books and TV shows and whatever. See them as just another way of telling the story that you have in your head. And by the way, about the Old Republic, I'm not as big of a fan of the Old Republic as a lot of people, but for whatever reason, The Last Jedi felt Old Republic-y to me. Like, obviously it's not set in the Old Republic, but it felt like an Old Republic story. It felt like a story straight from Drew Karpyshyn or the people that wrote the KOTOR games or the writers over at BioWare EA for SWOTOR. It felt like that kind of story to me. I don't know how or why or what the feel is. I got that feeling during the Kylo Ren and Rey versus all the Praetorian Guards fight. For whatever reason, it felt like an Old Republic fight scene to me. And then I started thinking about how this isn't a basic good, evil, bang, boom kind of story like the original trilogy is. It's much more nuanced and strange and a little otherworldly. And a big part of it is that in the Old Republic stuff, at least the stuff that I've consumed, they don't really care or worry about what the Force can actually do. The Force is the Force and it just does its thing, and either you have this ability or you don't. Like, you've got people that can consume entire planets in the Old Republic mythos. Whereas in this, you've got Luke Skywalker able to physically astral project himself across the blasted galaxy after not being in contact with the Force for years. It's huge. It's absolutely massive how they just don't care about how the Force works. And it's almost freeing. It's just, yeah, the Force does the thing. Yeah. And I like that. And I was kind of expecting that from Rian Johnson because, you look at Looper, you got the infamous or famous, depending on who you talk to, diner scene in Looper where, they're talking about time travel and then the Bruce Willis character is like, you know what? I don't want to know because otherwise we're going to be sitting here for 8 hours and making stupid diagrams of straws and whatever. And I kind of expected that Rian Johnson was just going to have whatever. It does the thing. Who cares? Pay attention to the story and the characters and what they're doing. Don't worry about the mechanics of how the universe works. With that being said, I will freely say that I was disappointed that we didn't get any reverence or any inkling for what the ancient Force users were like, what the ancient Jedi were like. At all. Like, we got Force Ghost Yoda. Yay! I was hoping for Force Ghost Yoda. I would have rather seen Force Ghost Anakin, but Force Ghost Yoda's okay. But Force Ghost Yoda just shows up and goes, and Luke's all like, no, I'm going to be destroying these. It's time for the Jedi to end. I'm going to destroy these sacred texts. And then Yoda just shows up and go, and then, you know, Luke kind of like, you kind of think that Yoda's going to be like, but wait, you shouldn't. But then, as Luke's walking up to the tree, Yoda just goes, massive force storm. Because I don't care if I'm a ghost, because now I can do that. So massive force storm, boom, done. And then when Luke looks at him, he's just giggling. And it's like, that's a disappointment. Like I said, an expectation. I was expecting to get more information on how the wills worked and what the ancient Jedi were like and how the ancient Sith were formed, and we didn't get that. But the story that we got was still really compelling. I think that's the key here about this movie, is that it is, in my opinion, the most compelling Star Wars movie. Compelling as in emotionally compelling. I had so many unexpected, just completely blindside, I can't believe that this movie is now doing this, and what is going, wait, what, how, and then the number of times, I think the first time that I felt this emotion was when Admiral Holdo turned about face and hyperspaced straight through the Imperial, or the Imperial, the First Order fleet. Where I legit was sitting in my seat going, and then it happened again when Luke was just completely unharmed from them shooting all of their freaking crazy Mega Caliber 6 guns at him. And he just walks out and he goes, and I went, and it just, I had so many of those kinds of moments where I'm like, what? Are they really going there? And are they really going to do this? And oh, that's such just beautiful cinematography. And I had so many crazy random emotions in this film. I just losing my damn mind, guys. I'm losing my damned mind. I can't wait. I'm going to go see it again in like 4 hours is when the next showing is. It's 11:30 my time, and my next showing is at 3:30 p.m. Hopefully by then this video will be up. Maybe I might have it up a little bit later. I might set it to upload after I leave. But yeah. Either way, thank you guys so much. I'm going to end this video because I feel like I've gone way all over the place. I would love to know your spoiler-filled thoughts down in the comments down below. Man, that was a good movie! I'm so excited. I'm so ready for more Star Wars. They better announce some more new books. Damn it. All right, I'm going to get out of here, you guys. You know, Twitter, Twitch, all that stuff down in the description. And leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. It lets me know that I might be doing something right. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button too. It would mean the world to me. Thank you guys as always. May the Force be with you. Take care. I love this movie!